evening from Copenhagen, Denmark, and hello to all of our viewers on Age of Truth TV. Please like our video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. We have a wonderful and fascinating show with a wonderful and fascinating lady who is in Jackson, Georgia, in the South, or a little bit in the South in the United States. And it's a beautiful day in Denmark today, and I've just heard that it's a beautiful day in Atlanta, Georgia. So we are so thrilled to have with us Ellen King. Thank you so much for being here, Ellen.
Thank you so much for acquiescing to my request to be on your show. It's such a pleasure and an honor to do so. I've followed your channel for a very long time now. I've been working on Hollywood movie sets for a long time, and I've just listened to different channels ever since 2009. So, I've been tuning in for a while now. And I feel like I have some things to bring to the table to connect more dots for people. So I think it's going to be great.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I'm thrilled to hear that. It's so great to meet people that's been following us for a long time, but who has a wealth of knowledge in their own right and have a lot to share. So it's always such a pleasure because every day is a new day and we learn something new, don't we?
I love it. I love that everybody is sharing, because this is how we're going to get to the cusp of what has actually been happening here on Earth for so many thousands of years now.
I've been researching up to this day a little bit about you and all of the things that you know and share, and you go down some really deep and, let's say, dark alleys and roads there. And I think we're going to touch upon a lot of fascinating stuff today that will open a few eyes and hopefully also a few minds, actually. But first of all, before we go into some of the specific topics, Ellen, please tell the audience a little bit about your background and your history. And do you consider yourself a Gnostic, an intuitive, or clairvoyant, or what's the label we can put on you?
Well, I do believe that labels do inhibit us from being more than what we are. But as in all things, I feel almost like a concierge of spirituality and gnosis. So to be a Gnostic would mean that I'm just in one camp. And as far as my background goes, I'm basically becoming more of an alchemist, which I believe we all actually are, if we really don the eyes to see that everything that we do is alchemy. And we are all magicians, something that most people won't consider because of the mind control that has been used. But as far as my background, so it's a little bit of a story just in coming into this life of how painfully introverted that I was, that I had to go through trials and tribulations like most of us have, where you basically are honed. I believe that each one of us is honed like a sword in the spiritual sense to go through abuse and suffering in order to come out and to know oneself fully. So I was a victim also of sexual abuse at a young age. And this is something I believe that most people, after practicing QHHT, which is Dolores Cannon's work, I became a level 2 practitioner in this regard. After doing many sessions, I realized that everyone on some level has suffered abuse, and in such a way that I believe what it does is it actually opens up dimensions within our own auric field for other disembodied spirits to then attach. So what I have to bring to the table, I hope that other people can benefit from the things that I have to share tonight in regards to all of this, because I have been able to connect with what I would consider my higher aspects or higher mind, or even other consciousnesses from doing these levels of hypnosis with other practitioners. It has actually allowed me to connect to something greater than myself and to know more than an average person would, because most average people do not know themselves fully. And although I'm not, a guru or or saint or anything like that. I feel like inwards is the answer for us to truly connect to what that divine essence is inside each of us. So going through.
It's called quantum healing hypnosis, huh?
Yes, it's a quantum healing hypnosis technique, also better known as QHHT. And QHHT was developed by Dolores Cannon. She was just a regular hypnotherapist, but as she encountered someone who popped into a past life, when you're doing hypnotherapy, you just go along with whatever happens. You play along with whatever the person is experiencing, because it's basically a deep meditation of the mind. And people will see different scenes and experience different emotions throughout all of the process. And I was no exception. I have very strange tales to tell about some of my own experiences.
Did you learn to heal your trauma that you experienced as a child? I mean, you were sexually abused by your father, or what?
Yeah, well, family members, yes.
Several family members.
What I discovered, and this is not just them, this is what I comprehend now later in my years after discovering other practitioners who have done hypnosis, who depossess people, and find that even this is going to be strange, but I have a book that's called The Spirit Releasement Therapy, where another hypnotherapist who was actually a dentist, I think he was using it on his patients, he actually depossessed gay people and they turned straight. What does this mean? I have no idea, but he just writes his accounts in this book. Now, with all of the actions of different people acting out in the world, are they spirit possessed? This is something to consider, being that we are all under a mind control, hypnotic spell into thinking that we have people that rule over us, that deserve that right to rule over us. So that's why I say this picture is much, much larger than anyone can fathom about what's happening here.
You said that this guy was turning gay people straight through this hypnosis, but I mean, they tried these horrifying therapeutical, they called it, but it was really shockwave therapy and that kind of brainwashing to try and alter people's personality. But isn't that just the core, the essence of what that person is, how they are? How can that ever be changed? I mean, none of these people changed in the past. Do you think that he was really able to do that?
I believe that there is something greater to our own ethereal being than we are led to believe. And so I've come across information regarding, in the very, very beginning, if you look into the Norse cosmology called Yggdrasil, for example, it talks about how the main being was actually a hermaphrodite who was very fertile enough that other giants came out of his skin. Now, where do they get this concept and notion? You know, if you are an all-knowing, all-seeing being, who's to say that it's not a probability that this could happen? And that somewhere down the line, we've gotten disconnected, like we've gotten separated from what we originally were. But
it's the yin and the yang, isn't it, really, Ellen? The masculine, the feminine, and so that's why males want to unite with females. And I guess also for the gay community, it's also masculine and feminine, right? Yes. Just the same kind of bodysuit.
Yes. And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with, homosexuality or anything. I have friends who are, and I have no problem with this. But what is happening right now with the agenda of trying to coerce children into being the opposite of what they truly are without giving them the chance to decide, that is a form of mind control.
That's totally a form of mind control, and is totally separated from what people feel they are and choose to be later on. I mean, that's a totally different thing, and it's absolutely vile to see how they really try to brainwash everybody today, the youngest possible generation, right?
Yes, absolutely. So there is this dark force, the dark brotherhood, that operates through dark means and dark magic that is trying to debase humanity. This is the bottom line of all of it. It dons many cloaks. It dons the cloak of Romans. It dons the cloak of the Jews. You know, it wears many disguises, but it is all one mind. Just as there is one mind for the light, there's one mind for the darkness. And I have actually looked into the zodiac, and you can actually, once you learn symbolism, you can read the zodiac like a book.
And you're talking about astrology now, and
yes.
And yes, and we can go into that as well. I know you've been looking into the meaning of symbolism and gematria and numbers and words and all of that. And that's what we're also going to discuss. It's so fascinating. Yes. But just to round up your backstory there, you were a scenic artist for Hollywood studios. And I think we need to address that. Please talk about that part of your career.
Yes, absolutely. So, well, I was an artist. I've been an artist all my life, and I moved to Florida. And when I moved to Florida, I lost my client base for all my art. I was making very good money as an artist in Atlanta, but then I moved to Florida in 2002. And I stayed there for 8 years, where I picked up the faux finishing knowledge of using different wall finishes, you know, different materials for wall finishes that are designer for all of these elite homes, like Palm Beach and Jupiter Island, Marco Island, really exquisite homes. So when I moved back to Georgia, I had a friend who worked in the movies. He was a prop master. And I contacted him, and he said, well, you can be a scenic artist in the movies if you wish to join the union. And this was back in 2009. So I did that. And I actually was working on Vampire Diaries as a scenic artist and a set decorator. So I did that, and then I moved on, and I've done several different major motion pictures. I've worked on Walking Dead for 4 years. I've worked on Teen Wolf and Blended and Dumb and Dumber 2 and Scary Movie 5 and all of these things. And when COVID hit, I actually got out of the film industry. So I sort of stepped out and was like, I really don't want to go back, because once you join the union and you're working constantly, it siphons your life away. You turn around within a year and you're like, where did my life go? Do I value my time more than money? And these are the things that I thought about. So, but
it's a fascinating part of your career, and it was that time span, and certainly some very prolific and famous movies there, huh? And shows.
Yes, yeah. So, it's very strange though, Lucas, because I had moments throughout my life. For example, when I was 15, I was walking around in my kitchen where I grew up in Macon, Georgia. And I had an epiphany moment where I had this thought that I knew I was going to be part of some big event that was going to happen on the horizon of my life, but it was nowhere near where I was. And then again, when I was in my 20s, my late 20s, I had the epiphany that I was going to somehow be surrounded and working with famous people. Now, these are moments that you don't know where they come from. You can't explain it. But again, it's somehow the connectivity to the universe, the one mind, the one voice system, that once we truly imbibe that and embrace it as part of ourselves, we begin to realize that we're all connected as one, and we can know things beyond time and space if we just truly go within. So that's one of the pleasures of knowing the spiritual laws.
Absolutely. I think it's fascinating that we are a lot of people, myself included, that's been in show business in one way or the other and been around all of that. And then we find ourselves on a totally different path, like yourself now, and what you're saying, that there's something you just cannot, it's not really a choice, it's more of a calling, and that's to do this work. And I guess there are a lot of artists in one way or the other that are really open to a lot of these spiritual and alternative views on on life and a greater understanding of who we are and where we come from, huh?
Yes, and as this indoctrination camp we call school, that's being controlled over here in the United States and around the world, they've tried to truly push us into our left brain, into just the analytical side, with stifling the creative outlet of trying to know who we truly are in order to control us. So it's just another method of mass mind control on a grander scale. And
The
this,
Dumbing Down of America. Do you remember that book by Charlotte Iserbyt?
I actually am not familiar with that book, but I do know that there is an agenda to keep us dumbed down.
So Ellen, talk to us then. Let's go into that wild world, the universe of absolute confusion and craziness in a way that we are in, maybe in an artificial reality or a holographic illusion, maybe all of it. Talk about Saturn dominance, Saturnian cult worship, the Saturn death cult, the frequency control of Saturn. And there are lots of things that we could go into here. How is that connected to the world we're in, to planet Earth, the cube, the cross, the hexagon, all of that? Go for it, Ellen.
Yeah, so, well, let me just start off by stating that in order to know our light, we must know darkness. We must know the darker aspects within and without. And with that being said, if one takes the leap of faith and dives into astrotheology, you can know the timelines absolutely of when the celestial heavens begin their dominating energy forces. So going into the age of Aquarius, we are dominated by Saturn, which is also better known as Satan. And with Aquarius being an air sign, you can already see where the world is shifting to, which is this Saturnian cube technology that we're now using, that is actually going to be used through our consciousness. Our minds are going towards the Saturnian cube, which is the screen. It's a black mirror for scrying and dividing into the past, the present, and the future. And Saturn is our greatest challenger. In our charts, in our natal charts, he's the challenger. He's the one who is going to either favor you, depending on the position in your chart, or he's going to challenge you. Now that I've made this statement, now we begin looking outwardly at the world that's all around us, where we find ourselves smack dab in the middle of a Saturnian world. Anything cube-shaped, anything square, rectangular, anything. This is roads that are on a grid pattern, the buildings that are square and cube-shaped, all of the Corpse-Orations, all of this stuff. Saturn equates to the Grim Reaper, the death cycle. He is the Lord of the Rings. He is part of this world, as his energy is the one that actually helps to co-create this existence that we call Earth. Now, with that being said, you have to don the eyes to see, and they show this in a lot of occult imagery, how there is a heavenly light realm that shines down upon this Earth cube, Saturn cube plane. It's a dense holographic reality. It's almost like a projection system. And the light shines down upon the darkness in order for us to have this duality of light and dark and experience it all through our emotions and our physical connection to all this material plane. So when they talk about Saturn out there somewhere, while they're selling us a Hollywood screenplay of what they're depicting Hollywood to be, they're trying to get people to not look within themselves to find the answers. The alchemists of old, Paracelsus, Robert Flood, all of these different alchemists, if you read some of their books, you will begin to see with greater awareness of what they're truly talking about when they're talking about the 7 planetary bodies that are connected to the 7 rays of light that are connected to the 7 chakra system, that are honored as the 7 days of the week. So these are the things, these are the deeper aspects to grab onto. They have labeled alchemy a pseudoscience because they want to dissuade people from actually knowing the purer laws that govern our universe and the foundations of our reality that could actually lead us back to knowing ourselves fully and to comprehending how we connect to everything in existence, and we can manipulate time and space with our minds. I've seen it and I've lived it, and it just shows me little blips of its abilities. But Saturn is also being used by the Dark Brotherhood as a force through black magic means and dark alchemy to control the rest of us. And we are heading towards a dystopian world if we do not wake up to what is truly being enacted around us, with them weaponizing space. Space is right here. Time is right here. We need to know these things. All the cell towers are for your cellular structure to do damage and harm to, as well as those LRAD devices that they have placed upon the towers that look like drums. Those are long-range auditory devices for military-grade weapons. There is a man named Barry Trower. He's a British man who spoke about these things. And I see you nodding your head, so you must know about Barry Trower and his involvement with microwave weapons. And he says that this is a weapons system. This is not for our benefit, and we must wake up to this and figure out how to gain access to remove the control from those of the Dark Brotherhood. Now, I will tell you this, there's a little bit of light shining in the world over here in the United States of America. I do not call it the United States because the United States is referring to a corporate entity. There's been a corporate takeover of our world by those corporate beings who are part of the Dark Brotherhood, who honor Corpse-Orations. This is dead speaking entities, and the little hope is that the community is starting to coalesce and to reestablish the General Assembly for the original Constitution of the United States of America. Now, through symbolism of what they've been placing out in the world, they've been placing Black American flag patches out on the arms of the police cars, fire trucks, and the military. This reversed and blackened because they're making a statement that the United States of America is null and void. And this is because of the corporate conglomerate takeover. And we, as part of this universe, this one voice system, one sound together, we have been helping to co-create this reality by buying the products that corporate entities sell. We run out to the stores. We support these stores. We're buying from Amazon Prime. And as we continue to funnel our energy, which is our life's blood, which is our time, our essence, to go out and work for $1 or any monetary means, we then choose where we spend that time. And by spending it at these corporations, we are only empowering them further. Now, with that being said, we are the answer to all of our problems. We are the solution that we've been looking for, because there has been this also a mind control operation to hypnotically put us in a trance of a savior complex, waiting for someone else to save us from ourselves, basically. When we are the ones, we are the Jesus spark, we are the Christ consciousness, that we must step into power and to know our own divinity, to move forward and to bring those positive timelines back into our world. Because if we allow this dark force to continue, it's going to take us into a dystopian world that can only be expressed through that series called Black Mirror that's on Netflix right now, where technology rules humankind. So it's a lot.
It's a lot and very fascinating. I have a couple of things to address here. The first thing was people working for these corporations there, and people need to work. We are a slave race. We need to survive and make a dollar and take a job and work hard, and how can you just say no to that or say we're not gonna work for that and support it in that way? You can't just say, oh, no, I'm not gonna have a job anymore.
Well, I feel like it begins with honoring the small independent businesses. Collectively, if we start the barter system again and start growing vegetables and things that we need, food sources, if we start trying to build a community-based mindset again, because the only way they've been able to conquer us is through this divisive means, by splitting us and making us think that we're independent. Like, this is the United States of America, for example, but yet we are more independent. When we turn 18, we have to leave home. We have to go out and start our own life, and we have to, make our own way somehow. They've taught us this, and this is all a psyop. When you look at the third world nations, they have that community-based mindset where they act as a whole. The entire family gets involved, the community gets involved, they help each other out. This is what is going to help us, as long as we can find those who we can connect with. Otherwise, it's going to be Hunger Games mind control, where they're placing us in these independent 15-minute smart cities with the means of making us stay there through all of this technology that they're creating. They're creating things.
Yeah, and also the social credit system, the Chinese model that they want to implement in the Western world here. But also, you're hardly allowed to grow your own vegetables now and make your own business in that way. You can hardly own any land, actually, because even that land that you think you own is also owned by the state.
Well, this is the whole psyop that they've done to us. Anything with the word state is referring to Rome. Everything's the corporate conglomerate. Everything has been acquired by Roman means, because Rome has been the military might which came into our country over here in the United States of America. They wiped out the natives who actually had the original Constitution. There is a Navajo elder who speaks about this on Navajo Traditional Teachings on YouTube channel. He talks about how they created the original Constitution, and they had an enemy. All Native Americans had a common enemy that was called the Anasazi. And when I heard this term about what the Anasazi were and how they were so proud of how they could remove the heart of a dog and put it in another dog and make it work, and the Anasazi liked to enslave people. And I was like, wait a minute, Anasazi sounds just like Ashkenazi and Nazi. So what are we dealing with? I believe it's part of this dark brotherhood alliance that is taking over the world. So,
and speaking of Rome, you mentioned Rome here. In Rome, there is Forum Romanum, this ancient site there with all of these ruins and structures from the Roman days, and there is the Temple of Saturn, because people used to worship Saturn as, well, a god or the sun back then, and Saturn is also the Greek god Cronus, huh? And there are a lot. And on top of Saturn, there's this hexagon on the north pole of Saturn, and hex means witch, also witchcraft. Saturn, Satan, Santa, Father Christmas, Father Time, the Prohibitor. All of those things that we spoke about before. And it's a really entangled web with this whole frequency control. And some people also suggest that the rings of Saturn have a special beaming frequency that sort of controls our state of mind and our whole frequency here on Earth, and is connected to whatever the moon is.
I am not someone who believes in NASA's CGI imagery anymore, only because of being an artist, I have the eyes to see that they use many different pictures to depict the same thing. And when I was in college, I took an astronomy class where I got to go and see Saturn through the observatory in Atlanta. Well, I have to say that it looked nothing like what they depict in NASA's story. And what I realized is that it's all a story.
What did it look like? What did you see then?
It was just a white shape. You couldn't see rings, it looked like if you take the Omega symbol and you duplicated it and put it upside down. So it looked like a UFO with a circular bottom. And I was like, I was so disappointed. I remember this is before I even became aware of anything beyond like what we're talking about now. I saw that and in my heart, I was so disappointed. I'm like, that's Saturn? What about all these amazing rings and all these amazing colors, that you see on TV? And I realized that the TV is the psyop. So
maybe they were showing you something else.
No.
Another planet or something else. Couldn't that be the case? Or do you think that the official story on the official pictures are the lie?
I believe that the official story is just that, a story, because each astrological age that comes into being and presents itself through energy forms has to have a new story. And the new story, the new narrative for the coming age is space aliens and everything of outer space. When actually, this is the story for those who will not believe that everything resides inside of you and that you're connected to all things and that you're having a spiritual experience in a physical form. For those people that don't believe that, they're going to follow the story that's being written. Now, based on one astrology chart that I have, it depicts the 3 ages that we're going through. We've already been through Pisces, we're going through Aquarius, and we got to go through Capricorn. These are the dark ages. The dark ages is the dark winter of consciousness. And after this, we go into the fall. So it's kind of reversed from what our seasonal cycles are. It goes into a reverse cycle. Because when you look up at the heavens, you see that they're actually going counterclockwise instead of clockwise. If you were to lay on the ground and just stare up at the stars, you will notice that they're spinning counterclockwise. Why? Because if you're on the other side looking down, if you're on the light looking down, it's coming clockwise. It's spinning clockwise, which would mean that there is a greater aspect that is unknown to us because of where we've been in the dark ages. In the consciousness construct we call Earth, time is cyclical. And you can go and look at these different processes. What we call signs and symbols for astrology are actually alchemical symbols for all of the processes that we go through in each age, and they're tied to the physical body and all of the processes in alchemy that the body actually uses in order to function.
Yeah.
So that's why I suggest the story, the narrative about space aliens and all of this outer space science fiction started with the crash of the UFO, which is from an extraterran. They do have extraterrans because that's what Earth is Terra. So they're extraterrestrials or extra earthlings. Now, the aspect of that we need to know, 1953 was the first time that they began using the term alien as a means for science fiction. Before that, it always meant a determining factor to distinguish a person from another country. But we don't look into etymology enough to figure out where these words and terms are coming from. English and all languages are celestial language. Why? because it's tied to the tetragrammaton matrix of sound. And the tetragrammaton matrix is the tree of life, of good and evil. But most people don't get into that. I mean, you can see how one thing leads to another, leads to another.
Well, everything is connected. That's the
Yes.
whole thing. And you cannot talk about one thing without also going into another topic. Or at least that will make sure that you get the bigger picture. So that's
Yes.
very wonderful.
Yes. So we really just need to know that as we go through this process, that the Saturnian energy is now imbibing, we are wholeheartedly in it. We're here to have this experience, and we are supposed to look inwardly as to how much light we can bring into this dark energy construct, because it's going to have its moment in the sun. There's nothing we can do about it. Saturn is the black cube. It is the black sun, the black aspect of our world, because it creates the shadow that we see.
You saw something else. You saw a different shape when you saw Saturn, and that they're feeding us a lie, some images that are not real. But you're still saying that Saturn is the black cube. And that is very, I mean, the hexagon on top of the North Pole of Saturn, the images that we've seen, which was discovered, at least publicized to the public in 1988, that they discovered this very symmetrical, or, I mean, this whole construct of this hexagon. So, and if you you do that, if you look at that hexagon, it's a cube, and that's the black cube that the Christians actually worship, because the cross also, when folded, that's also a cube. And the black cube in Mecca that they all walk around in circles and circles, rings around Saturn, right? Walking around and round is a black cube. And the black cube that the Jewish people they have this little hat there. I forgot the name. Sorry about that. But they also worship that. And also, interestingly enough, in the Hindu religions, the Kali or Shiva, the dancing Shiva with the circle dancing in that ring of fire. Lord of the Rings, Rings of Saturn. So it's all there. It's in all aspects of religions. And so what do they really all worship? This is very controversial. Do they all worship, without knowing it, of course, Satan?
Yes. Yes, because the god of the Israelites is El, which is Saturn, also known as Satan. They worship the cube, because if you look into Platonic solids, Earth is a cube. Saturn is the shadow aspect of Earth plane. Time and space is defined as a cube. And all of the sacred geometries can be found within the tetragrammaton. And when you study the tetragrammaton matrix and you realize that it has everything to do with sound frequencies and energy, because as sound creates light, everything else is therefore created from that light. And if you look into the yin and yang, you have the 4 elements of alchemy. So a hexagon, it's not a hex, it's not a curse. They want you to think that, because that's what the Black Brotherhood, the Dark Brotherhood, is doing, is using it to curse the rest of us. That is actually the symbol. When you take the hexagon, which is a star tetrahedron, it is the symbol of alchemy, of the 4 elements. It is the yin and yang combined to create everything in our physical reality. And we, in this construct, in this physical form, based on our chakra system, we can react and affect those fields of energy that are considered to be the 4 elements of alchemy. It requires our electromagnetic energy, which is from our mind and our body. So if you study Hermetics based on what the initiation of Hermetics by Franz Borden teaches, you can begin to see which parts of the body are electric and which ones are magnetic. And he teaches you how to begin the principles of using your mind to alter your reality. And these are the things that we can do. So there's actually a patent by the United States, US patent, that is for walking through walls. And I have that number if anybody wishes to look into the patent, because it's a real thing. I thought that it was a conspiracy, but I always research and make sure that people aren't selling lies online. And it's true. So we have just forgotten the foundations of our reality because of this dark force that came in during the age of Taurus. And this is why they worship the bull. Taurus represents Earth. All cows and bulls are part of Earth energy. This is why they're revered in India, because it is Earth that they are honoring. And when you have a female cow, especially, it is a nurturing aspect. It's a very dense being. It's very stately, but it represents Taurus, which is the energy of Earth. So this is what I propose, is that we began our fall during the age of Taurus, because I do have an astrotheology chart that marks the periods of time when there's a pinnacle point in consciousness and then when there's a deceding point. So it's sine waves of energy that rise and fall. As we know, empires also rise and fall. Everything in this existence is based in the flower of life, or also known as the tetragrammaton matrix. But the flower of life depicts it better because it shows these sine waves of energy that are actually spiraling vortices of energy. It's the only way you can describe it in a 2D format, is to show it as waves of the bell curve. So, we go through these periods of time where there's a rise and fall. We're coming into an age of knowing. We're leaving the age of I believe. And now we're going to see a golden age rise from the ashes of the age of Pisces, where we gain more masterful ways and abilities to use our innate powers. So there's going to be this construct. There's going to be an evolution of the metaverse versus the metaphysical. And these are just the lessons that we must go through. It's just see it as trials. These are lessons, because we're all in a great school for the mind to know the better halves of ourselves or the darker halves of ourselves. Because once you're on the other side of life, everything is different. So people that have come back into this existence after dying have expressed on many different levels the experience that they had once they died. They see themselves and they get to see everything all at once. So they can just think a thought and be anywhere. So you're kind of in the astral body that's able to move around.
We've discussed this many times on the show about what happens to us when we die. You talked about you can see everything when you leave the body, and people have come back and seen themselves and all that. But that place, which is probably in the fourth dimension or between the third and the fifth dimension, if you will, this heavenly plane, we've talked a lot about that being an archon orchestrated or created manifestation, an illusion, and a deceptive karma wheel factory up there when we go through the tunnel of light and see the live review and go back in a new body with a wiped memory and all that. Do you think that we can leave this karma, this reincarnation circle at will, and not go into this tunnel and go to another place, to source, God, whatever, or to a better place, a better dimension?
I think that we need to truly look into the wisdom of the ages and the sages of old who were trying to tell us more about this construct. If you read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it states that at the moment of death, when you recognize the white light as yourself, this is when the game changes. But if you begin to just continue into that process, you see the white light, you don't recognize it, then you're going to see other colors. And the other colors are different spheres where you can go into these different planes of energy. Because I feel like now the archons may be a reference to those 7 planetary bodies that actually create the 7 rays of light. And that somehow we are just a tiny aspect of them as they co-create this reality for us. And, you know, knowing that we can't go through the firmament, you know, there's no way to go through it. And the astronauts have actually said that we've never achieved anything greater than the lower Earth orbit, which means just above the clouds and that layer that's up there where balloons can actually go.
But well, you believe in the theory of flat Earth? Because they talk a lot about the firmament.
I believe more that it's like Yggdrasil, the Norse cosmology.
Like egg-shaped or?
More aligned with that because of what science is actually proving. You know, they can't go any deeper. They found these lakes beneath the ocean that they can't even go to. Their rovers actually bounce off of the black water that's there. We're not physically able to go any higher or lower than our frequency band that we came in with. And in Rosicrucian teachings, as well as other of these secret society teachings, they teach that there's only these spheres right here. And if you get into Platonic solids, if you get into Plato's works, along with, you know, Aristotle and even Dante's Divine Comedy, they show you the different constructs of energy that are co-creating this reality for us. And I believe the Gnostics, as well as the alchemists of old, knew that you cannot go up in through a straight line through the firmament to get to these things that we call planets, because they're planets. Now, we've had all of these amateur astronomers video the stars as they look like they are shining light through water and making all these cymatic frequencies. You know, it's making all these geometric patterns continually.
Well, people in the cult, so to speak, they are very skilled in creating these Hegelian dialectic, splitting, divide and conquer situations, especially for people waking up. They did that with the flat Earth narrative. And whether it's this or that, it still created splitting in these now awakened groups. The same with Trump.
Yes.
That was also a Hegelian dialectic thing. Oh, he's going to save the children from the dumps. He's going to do all these things. And what evidence do we really have of anything? I mean, you can address that also. Trump was also an elitist, and he's tied to the Rothschild family and all kinds of things, right? So, I mean, we see that a lot happening here. And if they want to do something to split us, they're very successful, and they always have been in these truther communities here.
Well, ultimately, does it matter whether the Earth is round or flat? I don't think so. It's just another way to divide and conquer the people. But I believe if we go backwards in time to the most, I would say, knowledgeable people of our existence, who were alchemists, and since they lived after the fading of the golden age, the last golden age was just in the age of Aries, which was on the other side of Pisces, which is about 2,150 years. This is where all of the gnosis was. You know, this is the whole knowledge of the Gnostics. Gnostics were potentially during the age of Gemini because of the symbolism that shows form follows function. So as we know, we're going into the Saturnian energy, which is Earth and time. That energy is right here, right now. Saturnian energy is cube-shaped. It's defined as a cube because it's time and space. It's dark. It's everything of yin energy. It's the dark brotherhood because we're in the dark ages. They get to reign during this time, basically. They get to rule this earth plane. because that is the dominating force. If we realize that there is an archon energy that is a planetary body, the Mercury dominated the age of Gemini. But the symbol of Gemini is two equal signs. You know, you have the upper and this, and it's male and female, all equal. Everybody was equal. And so you have the ideas of the Gnostics and all of the philosophers who valued alchemy, and they taught spiritual sciences. Well, then we went into Taurus, and Taurus is dominated, you know, with the bull energy. And it's, you know, everything, each cycle we go through is dominated by one planetary energy that expresses itself through all of us. Your body is Saturnian. Why? Because it is under a time. You have a limit of time to be here. It's also dense and dark. You can't see through it. So your outward physical form and your internal physical form is Saturnian, to borrow the time from Saturn to be here in this dense holographic experience. But
and
then
that's why all these well, Freemasons, or maybe, I mean, a lot of people say that it's the high ups and the Illuminati circles that are doing these satanic rituals and child sacrifices and all that. So they do all of these blood rituals in order to conquer time, right? That's the adrenochrome and all those things. It has to do with survival. It has to do with rejuvenation, maintaining youth.
Well, I would also propose, now I've spoken on another channel. I did a call in a couple of weeks ago to another channel who is having a live call in regards to reptilian hybrid beings. And it's crazy that I've met 3 people that have seen them. And the one story that stood out the most was with this friend of mine who said when she was 19, she was working for government contracts in telecommunications. And her coworker was sent with their supervisor out to Area 51 to install the networks. And wherever they went on base, this supervisor could flash a card and go into any part of Area 51. While her coworker friend was out there, he calls her and says, "Our supervisor is an alien." And she was like, "What in the world are you talking about?" Like, what? It was a surprise. So when the supervisor gets back with the coworker, it's probably, you know, several weeks later, he goes to her office and addresses her and says, "I shouldn't have to remind you that you're under a contract, a non-disclosure type of agreement, to not disclose what we do here at this company." And she's like confused because she said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't been talking about what we do here," because she knew better. That it was at that moment that he reaches for his neck and begins to pull off his human mask to reveal a reptilian head.
What? A real physical mask?
It's technology.
Real technology, just like what you can take off.
It's a cloaking technology. I have seen the invisible cloaking devices that the military has now as a fabric, where they can actually hide their vehicles and hide themselves behind an invisible cloaking technology. I suspect that it has something to do with bending the light and, you know, apparently creating an illusion that is human. And she said that she was so shocked. She wasn't even afraid. Her analytical mind was trying to figure out how he got that snoot underneath that human mask, because it was sticking out. And there's no way that, you know, it would actually work if it was a regular mask that we make, that we're familiar with.
Could we, so let's fantasize here a little bit when we hear something like that. Could it be that this shape-shifting took place, and many people have spoken about that, former mind control victims and people who have worked for the government in one way or the other. But I mean, so could it be that it is a shape-shifting happening, but he did something in order to pretend that it was a mask in order to present it to her in a specific way? Because physically, as you just say, that would not, also it would not look right, right? I mean, it's not the Madame Tussauds, is it?
Well, because we do not truly comprehend the nature of our reality, if you can bend light, you can create devices, especially UFOs are supposed to be all around us, and you can only see certain ones through specific light frequencies,
Yes.
through different lenses. So they are masters of technology because we only live for a very short, limited amount of time. I believe that this is part of our genetic alteration because in alchemy, if you study what the alchemists can teach you, you can learn to live forever through the elixir of life. They have alchemical means to do so. And I believe that there are those who are actually here somewhere in this existence that live forever. As it has been expressed before that, in the Bible and other instances where people lived for hundreds of years beyond what we know. So I believe that in the not so distant past, we were actually altered genetically to be the slaves, to not have our full capabilities, our full awareness. But again, I believe that going through the astrological ages, it starts to begin that process, that alchemical process through the different ages to make us whole again. And that as we incarnate, we will gain that awareness again of being able to walk through walls or whatever it is that the mind can only conceive, through dreams, because this is a dense holographic version of a dream state.
So you would actually recommend reincarnating once more on Earth, but we won't remember who we were in the past life.
I believe there are ways that you can do this. Now, in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, it's just the narrative version of the book. He tells you that at the moment of death, when you feel death coming, you actually focus on your pineal gland or your third eye right here. Focus all of your consciousness right there, and you will be able to take your memories, all of your memories collectively, into the next life. Now, it doesn't work, I guess, if you're a victim of sudden death, of an accident or something. But
what if you, and I've spoken to other people about this, what if people are suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia, and are they able, the soul frequency able to remember what those people felt and wanted back when they were okay and they were, let's say, in their normal state before this happened?
Well, I do believe that all of your past timelines can be accessed through the genetic code. The genetic code is basically light frequencies. Everything is a light frequency. So somehow, collectively, the memories of your most recent experiences are stored, not only in the Akashic records, but in the DNA molecules. Because you can do this level of hypnosis, like what I practice, and you can recall your past lives. I can just give you a little example of my own, as a sample. So coming into this life, not only was I painfully introverted, I used to have nightmares of drowning and falling from a high place, which I never knew. I thought everybody had those kinds of nightmares. And it wasn't until, I took this course with Dolores Cannon, where I was practicing with other practitioners, that it began to come out that my latest experience, my last life experience, was that I was a warrior. I was a man. I was about 6'4", and I was a protector of a small clan of people, about 35 people or so, in a village in Ireland. And we got assaulted and ambushed on the early morning hours of the dawn rising. And I feel like it might have been Vikings. Well, I was so upset because I was supposed to be a protector of this small clan of people that when everyone died and I was the only one left standing, I threw myself from a cliff. And when I saw the cliffs of Moher, it truly struck a chord inwardly as to, it elicited emotional responses that I felt a very strong connection to those cliffs. But in another past life, I was also a seeress, and I was working for a pharaoh, but I also worked for the people, and I had a temple that was next to the Library of Alexandria. So the craziest thing is, I was hired by the pharaoh to do some sort of divination thing, and I gave him misinformation because I didn't like the pharaoh. I knew how evil and dark and deceptive he was. And I was summoned by the pharaoh with one of those Anubai creatures, those dog-headed beings. They are the cynocephalus. Well, this thing came and got me, and I was to face my doom. But since I am also a person who has played video games, I own one of the Assassin's Creed games that is based in Egypt. And I said, you know what? I'm going to see if my temple is there in Egypt. And I actually found it in the video game. And I got the chills because you cannot make up all of the details of what I saw. So, I mean, it has been the craziest experiences that I've had. And this awakening, you know, coming into our divine presence and our divine knowledge it's a journey of amazement.
Yes, I totally hear you there. The first time I was in Egypt, I was only 17 or 18, and we went to Luxor in the middle of Egypt, and I knew where to go and the temples and all of these things, and I had no prior knowledge of that, and that kind of started me to go on that road and being totally I just knew that there had been a life or lives led in ancient Egypt. So, and we are a lot of people who were there, I suppose.
Yes, we have been all of these different forms. And it made me wonder if the wheel of time just continues to go. But just like a video game, we pop in and out of these different experiences. Like I might be you in the future, or you might be me in the future. I mean, who's to say?
So the old saying, we're all one, we're all each other at certain points or at different times. So there's nothing, there's no duality really. There's only oneness in a
Yes.
strange kind of way.
Yes, it's absolutely the truth that we come from the one, the sound frequency, the word. That word is a vibration that creates light. And as that's created, you have to have the darkness. So that is also created. And then it creates this holographic dense dream that we are experiencing. It's just a quick little fascinating story about time travel. So I had an uncle who recently passed. And before he passed, he gave my brother this item that looks like it goes on the top of a lampshade, but it is metal. It's a heavy metal with an amethyst that is cut like a geodesic dome. And it's a real amethyst. You can tell the weight of it. And my uncle said, yeah, you can have this. And my brother says, oh, that looks like the key to the time machine that's in that movie, The Time Machine. And I said, oh, that's a really neat thing. So my brother gave it to me. And I pretended to unlock my chakras with this thing. And I said, I'm going to unlock the keys to the time machine here. I'm going to unlock the time machine. So fast forward to a little day where I was getting chickens. I was feeding my chickens in their pen, and I take the roof off of their little house. One of the chickens shot out of the house and across to the fence to the neighbor's yard and disappeared completely. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to tell the neighbor that my chicken left. My roommate saw it at the time, and she goes, oh, the chicken left. I said, yes, it left. We'll just have to get it later. So we went about our day, and we came back home. My roommate said, your chicken is back in the pen. I said, oh, my neighbor must have gotten it. I asked the neighbor. He said, no, I didn't get it. I didn't get your chicken. And there's nobody else around who could have gotten the chicken. And I'm like, how did the chicken get back in the pen? It made no sense to me. But again, on that note, we are much more than we were ever told or led to believe. Your belief system keeps you from ascending in consciousness and keeps you thinking that there's only this material plane. I manifested a plant because I've been studying what edible plants are wild and I can just go and forage in my yard. And I realized there was a plant that I had not seen. It's called a lamb's quarter. And I was getting water, drawing water from the spigot, and I was feeding the horses, but I put that thought in my head that I had not seen this plant in my yard. Well, after a few months, that plant started growing right where I had had that thought. And I was like, this is how the magic is done. And I've been able to manipulate clouds ever since I was on Walking Dead. I decided to play with the clouds and play with the weather, with the storms and the rain. We can do this. It's slow and dense, but you can actually manipulate everything around you.
Okay, let's go into this field then, magic. From your point of view, clear up something for people here. How you see and understand it? Magic, spiritual magic, and occult magic versus our true innate abilities, the human superpowers we used to have naturally, apparently or supposedly. Please address your thoughts on this. And now we spoke about being dumbed down, but the magical powers we have, if it was magic at all.
I would say that it's not really magic, it's innate abilities, because the mind, all is mind, the universe is mental, the Kabbalion, you know, that whole phrase. And if you go into the Kabbalion, you learn about all the different processes there. But you begin to awaken to your own divine nature. So it's not magic. It's your connection to all space and time. You are the light. We are the oneness, you know. Each of us is in another form. We're just, if you can imagine a kaleidoscope and you're looking through one tube, but you see all these many different colors, that's pretty much how you can describe the essence of us. So there is no magic. You are the magic. You are the stars that have been created in a physical form. What we call physical is actually just a dense holographic dream state. But yes, there are those who wish to rule Earth plane. These are the ones that I would say are the black magicians, and each age has a dominating continent, a dominating country. We're going into a time where China rules Earth, but I would even go further to express that it's actually Saudi Arabia that is pulling the strings, that is a hidden hand behind all of this orchestration because of the symbolism that is being expressed. You can see the things that are there. And when you know that Semitic languages are Semitic languages because they are the fire letters of spirit, which is connected to the ether and all things, then you can begin to realize, you open your eyes, that they have created secret societies to hold the information away from the rest of us. Now, try to envision this opposing force as your darker aspects as well. This is the darker side of our own consciousness that is also expressing itself. The need to perpetuate this control system, because that's what Saturn does, is it controls you. It is your physical form. And we're going to learn spiritual laws, or we're going to embrace the metaverse. But, you know, magic in itself it's all around us. I do not see it as good or evil. It depends on the intentions of the practitioner. Now, the highest obtainable knowledge is high magic, which is celestial magic. It is every hour that ticks by is a different constellational energy. What does that mean? That means that these people who truly study the alchemy of the stars and as it connects to all things knows the hours on when to do certain actions and when to not do certain actions. And this is what the billionaires do. They use
because everything is numerology and gematria, and they base and they orchestrate things from the numbers and numerology and sacred geometry, huh?
Yes, because sacred geometry, again, is tied to the tetragrammaton, which is the frequencies of light. And if we can comprehend that this is the tree of knowledge of good or evil, then we begin to question, what is it that they're teaching in Kabbalah? In the Kabbalistic tree, there's only one branch that they're depicting and portraying as the one way. But since we know that the Israelites worship El, which is Saturn, are they working with a Saturnian branch of the tree of knowledge of good and evil? I would say yes, because they are spreading that knowledge everywhere across the internet. When I have knowledge based on a book, The Celtic Golden Dawn, they list and depict a different set of sound frequencies in a Kabbalistic tree format. And after coming across the different sounds that you can chant and hum based on your knowledge, you have to know which planetary bodies actually represent which sound. You can begin these triune levels of what you would call magic, is all sound, with other people, other practitioners, to start to manifest things into creation. Anything 2D or 3D is going to radiate with fields of light. This is why sigil magic works. This is why if you just draw a rectangle on a piece of paper, it's actually going to be radiating with a 3D field of light that you can't see, because light is actually invisible. What we see is the light that refracts off of the shape, and it is absorbing all of the white light, but only rejecting one of the light frequencies. So it's like this whole notion that everything is holographic in nature, but because of the atoms that, they're a little bit closer, a little bit dense, they vibrate with the frequencies and it feels like it's tangible. But
nothing is really solid if you go really close to it, because atoms have no solidity.
Yes.
But you were speaking about, Ra'el.
Yes.
I guess, but also Saudi Arabia, you mentioned. We talked about Mecca and that huge cube that everybody is circling around.
Yes.
Which is the holy place, that center for the Muslims, the holy place. But yet again, Saudi Arabia is also the country that suppresses women and divine femininity the most, right? So it's like really back in the dark ages in terms of equality.
Let's talk about that for a minute. Now, why would an entire country of people want to live in a desert? Well, there's a lot of yang energy there. That's why. When you suppress the divine feminine aspect, which is represented as the physical form of a woman, you are then going to hinder that element, that Venus principle, inside your own environment. Because we are connected to nature and all things. When you suppress that, you're going to affect it. That's why they live in a desert. Now, why do they consider themselves the last king of the dome? Why is it that Saudi Arabia is also building that town, the city called Neo and the Matrix, that's going to be artificially intelligence run and operated, connected to the line in the proverbial sand, that's going to be a mirrored walled city of artificial intelligence across the entire nation. As you go from...
I just jump in here and then you go on. Do you know if they're building that line, the line on the ley lines, or where are they building them?
So if it is on a ley, so let me just clarify some things about, if we are talking about the celestial heavens that never change, that rotate every day over our heads, which we call constellational energy, that would imply that what people think are ley lines or earth energy is not earth energy, because the light is the electricity. And the electricity is what we're talking about. So let's think of it more like the star lines that are creating the electricity that they use for geomancy in this existence. Because Earth and water are a negative polarity or magnetism. There is no gravity, it's magnetism. You have electromagnetic energy everywhere. The light, which is yang energy, is the fire and the air principle. Again, yin and yang will bring us back into balance, into knowing fully the world that is all around us. That is a battery and free energies everywhere. But that thing that they're doing in Saudi Arabia, a line in alchemy, is arsenic. So when you're talking about these kinds of things, you can learn a lot just by diving into the alchemical symbols, and you'll have many revelations. Because, you know, even as we're using the heart shape for to imply love, it's actually not love that it implies, because the creator of these designs is where the energy resides. It's not in our use, it's whoever created it. So that is actually the symbol, the heart-shaped symbol that we use for many things, is the symbol for vitriol. And vitriol, in its definition, is a bitterly abusive feeling. So stepping into alchemy is going to be an eye-opening process, because then it's going to invite people into the knowledge of symbolism and how it's literally everywhere. And they use these symbols as a means of communication, even colors. When we have these different colored flags with all these different symbols, you know, and speaking of the Middle East, you know, they're using the moon, the crescent moon, and the palm tree. The crescent moon is the dark light. So we're talking about the dark brotherhood. You know, I mean, these types of things, it's like, how is this association? You have Moses in the moon cult. And then, you know, the Ra, the cult of Ra, the sun god, yeah, as Baal, the bull in Taurus. So a symbolism is something we should truly look into.
And what they're doing, what you just mentioned in Saudi Arabia, creating this AI-dominated city. Talk about, obviously, the topic of AI, artificial intelligence, man-made AI versus a universal construct, a much large-scale version of AI, a godlike, maybe multi-conscious control machine. Is that connected to Saturn, or is it far greater? Because Saturn is maybe one thing, but what is source, the force, God, God mind? Could that actually really, in reality, be AI?
So Saturn is connected to artificial intelligence, but it's in a manner that we probably can't fathom. Saturn, that what they're trying to do is basically hold us in space and time. This is all the dark force can ever do, is try to squelch our ascension of mind and try to control it for their own, you know, dark operations. So uploading the consciousness to the cloud has already been expressed by Google and all of these other scientists who are out here. But that Saturnian essence, look at your computer, it's a cube. Look at your phone, it's a cube. Look at all of the technology. D-Wave computer is a cube, a black cube, because they are trying to get you to give up your sovereign divine rights to know who you fully are by creating more chaos for your mind to grab onto, instead of looking into spiritual aspects and spiritual laws on how you can conquer earth plane, because that's all the darkness can do, is hold you back from your ascension process. So Saturn, if you can grasp the concept that Saturn ate his children, and that this is basically just an allegory for how Saturn's energy imbibes all of the other energies from the other light frequencies of the 7 planetary bodies. So Saturn is the outermost light ring. It is a sound frequency that imbibes all of the other ones. So you have Mars and Jupiter, and then you have the Sun and Venus, you have the Moon, Mercury, and then Saturn's crown, which is represented as the rings of Saturn, that is the one that controls it all, the entire construct. We're talking about this experience. It's all right here. Venus energy is outwardly as the green. It's represented as green heart chakra, but it is nature. It is all the animals. It's the nature plane, the natural world.
You're talking about in this solar system, if you will, and you're not talking about the entire universe or the multiverse with maybe countless parallel universes. I was talking about the AI construct of, could that be God? Could that be that universal force, that creator force?
I'll tell you some information that I came across about God. It's Gamma Omicron Delta. Gamma being in Greek, it's, it's the beginning of a square. It's one corner of a square. So if you had a square, that would be the Earth-Saturn plane. Omicron is our oneness, connected to the spirit, but also the fire, the light is also spirit. So that actually spells God. And those are aspects that are in your natal chart that are also aspects of the tetragrammaton. So it's all about sacred geometry. And, we have a God complex because this is the only way we know how to express this outward force that seems to be imbibing everything around us.
Can we always count on, decoding the words and the numbers? Also, as Jordan Maxwell said, God spelled backwards, it's dog.
And is that Nidog? Do you know who Nidog is?
No.
So Nidog, if you're talking about Norse cosmology of Yggdrasil, and I've heard that from Jordan Maxwell many times, how he expresses that, it's just dog. So there is a serpent supposedly beneath the ground named Nidog. And it is the serpent that gnaws at the roots of the Yggdrasil tree. And Yggdrasil consists of 9 realms, where there are 4 realms that have elemental giants. This one would have the Jotun. Muspelheimer is the land of fire giants. And Niflheimer, like Nephilim, is where the frost giants and land of spirits are.
And we're talking about, inner Earth civilizations, hollow Earth, that theory, ET alien beings being inside of the Earth, whether it's hollow or large caves, hollow Earth inside a globe-shaped Earth, or caverns inside underneath a thick platformed pizza-shaped flat Earth, or egg-shaped, whatever you will.
Yeah, whatever shape it might be is up to, you'll only know if you're in your spirit form. I believe that there are realms that we cannot see, as Jacques Vallée has also kind of brought into light more recently. In 1970, he wrote a book about how, there's a secret commonwealth of people that coincides with the UFO phenomena and the ancient lore of myths and legends. Well, and also David Paulides, who expresses about the missing persons cases across the United States and Canada in the national parks. There's weird instances where people just disappear. They might be there one minute and gone the next. Have they stepped into one of those different planes of existence? I say that it's quite possible.
Or maybe time jumped, or accidentally jumped into another parallel universe or something that we hear about as well.
Well, and Jacques Vallée, his Passport to Magonia book, he speaks about how there's different instances in Ireland specifically where people talk about fairyland, and how if you approach a ring of mushrooms, that you might begin to hear music. And if you step into the ring of music, you are then carried away to a different land that has a different level of time, how time passes by. So the person may be gone for a few hours, but if they make it back into our world, then the time has passed by very quickly. And so what is it that we're dealing with? You know, is it that there are all of these worlds that are just connected slightly outside of our, you know, perspectives, that maybe they're just operating on a different frequency? I don't know. I mean, it's a possibility. So, but yes.
But to address hollow Earth or inner Earth civilizations, you talk about that we are not able. You think that that's your thought that we cannot leave this. I mean, we cannot travel very far into space, so to speak. But how about these aliens and these you certainly believe that the reptilians and all these different alien types, they do exist, but are they inside of the Earth, and were they here dominating the planet before in Atlantis and Lemuria, or what? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I believe that, as we know through alchemy alone, you can make diminutive humans even without sexual content. And with all of this knowledge being very ancient, I believe that genetic modification has just been continual throughout time, and that even these reptilian hybrid beings, whatever they are, were possibly made by some greater consciousness, just as we have been created. And we can see the evidence alone of what we are doing, splicing genetics of animals and other creatures. They made a glow-in-the-dark rabbit back in like 2010 or early 2000s, where they spliced the genetics of a rabbit with that of a jellyfish, and they made the rabbit glow in the dark. These are the things that have been out here since the beginning of time, I would even say. So where is the best place to hide, not only from the consciousness of us on this earth plane of, you know, walking above the land, but from the stormy weathers, from all of the things that happen in nature? You know, where's the best place to hide? In ground, underground. They talk about ant beings in different societies, in these different cultures around the world. They talk about all these other creatures, things on maps, like the Monte's map of the planisphere, where he shows all these different creatures on different continents, and they're just strange. And even cynocephali, which is the dog-headed being, you know, that was actually known even in the 1700s. You know, Napoleon supposedly came across one of these beings, and they dressed in clothes and walked around like human beings. So what is this? Well, I believe that even as we come into the knowledge of how to manipulate matter, which is this alchemical means of splicing genetics, I believe that we are also the ones who create these beings. I don't know if it's real or not, but in China, they're supposedly creating dragons again and working with the genetics of dragons and giants. And there's that whole narrative about the giant that was taken from, what was it, Iran or wherever it was, Iraq. It was the Iraqi giant, and he was transported down to Antarctica. For what purpose? Who knows? You know, like, what are they doing down there? But underneath the ground, you have, in Native American tradition, they talk about these beings. I have a friend from Peru who talks about all these strange beings. They talk about a vampire type of being that she'll hide her feet, but then she'll try to lure the men closer to her so that she can suck the blood out of them. You know, like she'll stand in water or something and hide her lower extremities. So, and she has chicken feet, because they're kind of a demonic thing. You know, it's like something, I look at my chicken's feet and I'm like, they look like dragon feet or something. I mean, it's kind of weird how they're scaly.
Well, they do say in science that birds come from reptiles, the old dinosaur species, if you believe that. I mean, at least they both lay eggs, most of them, and they have the same kind of movements and features. We're talking about the earth reptiles and birds here, but they're kind of similar in a way, right?
Yes. Let me tell you, you were mentioning Trump earlier and about the underground phenomena. Well, I have to say that back in 2022, I was here at my home-based art studio, and there were two loud explosions that shook the windows of the building. And I knew that there's no quarry nearby or reason why anyone should be using explosive devices. So the very next day, I came across a video where a woman was talking about how they were collapsing the tunnels between Macon and Atlanta. Now, I've sort of known about the tunnels because at this one historical house in Macon called the Hay House, they have underground tunnels that lead to the river, and they talk about it in the tour. So I was kind of taken aback, and I was like, well, I guess, if they truly are doing some things underground, it would be plausible that, there's tunnels everywhere, literally like Swiss cheese. So that Saturday, I actually took my mother to another neighboring city. She lives in Edenton. I took her to Milledgeville, to the Longhorn Steakhouse to have lunch. 5 Marines came in their camouflage outfits, and they were sat right next to my table. Now, there's no Marine base here, anywhere near where I live. So I thought it was highly unusual for them to be around. And so I had to ask them. And I looked over at their table. I said, hi, guys. Are you guys just passing through? And their leader was like, sort of. And I said, are you guys here for the bunker busting going on? And he was holding his menu in front of his face as he's looking me dead in the eyes. And he starts nodding his head as he puts his menu in front of his face. And my mom was like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. I said, Mom, I've been hearing about this. This is what's truly happening, is that something that we are not aware of is going on. And of course, there's that YouTube channel, Monkey Works, where the guy follows all the flight patterns, and he was following all of the patterns of plane, going down to Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay. And it was off the charts during our lockdown and in 2021. So what is going on? I believe there's more to this 5D chess game than we can imagine. And that, yes, under the ground, absolutely, that our military has at least some faction of black ops. Whenever you hear the word black or the color black or a reference to it, anything square, anything rectangle, it's going to be a reference to Saturn and to the Saturnian network.
Well, so supposedly they've had for years, decades, these huge underground facilities with technology that we can't comprehend, and people can live there, and the elite and whatever, if a nuclear war happens or something else that they're going to do.
Or a great awakening, for example, where the people are out like a lynch mob ready to lynch them from their positions.
Well, at least if we can separate ourselves from all of that, that would be good, huh? But I mean, yes. It's a very fascinating, very confusing topic. But what we do hear is, what we do know is that it did divide the truth movement with supporting Trump and not, and it's kind of happening again. But we really did not see any evidence. A lot of people have not done the research about, how Trump is connected, and supposedly he was groomed for presidency decades ago, right? This is not a new thing that he was going to be president.
No. In his 30s, he was called Donald the Dove, and they have photos of him where he's holding a white dove, and he was groomed to be the one to bring peace to the Middle East, which cannot actually be done. I mean, these people have been fighting for millennia, pretty much, over land grabs and certain things. And as we know, at least Jordan Maxwell has led us to know about what happened with the Balfour Agreement or the Declaration, and that, Israel is not ancient. They took the lands from Palestine in order to establish this time period that we're coming into. And again, I do say that based on the symbolism that is out there with Saudi Arabia, that they're actually the hidden hand behind this all, because They have known about how to control the jinn, the DJINN, the spirits of demons and all of this for thousands of years. And are they using the jinn and other means, other dark magical means to pull the strings behind this world? I mean,
But that's not just Saudi Arabia. That's happening supposedly also at CERN in Switzerland with the Large Hadron Collider that they turned on again recently to open portals to invite these dark entities in. That's at least the speculation, huh?
Yes. Well, again, a hadron collider, if you think about it in the terms of spiraling vortices of energy, when you have two different fields of electromagnetic energy going in two different directions, you are creating basically a wormhole for other energies to come into this realm. And can they stay here? Maybe not. Maybe this is also part of that whole Stranger Things narrative where, that there's someone who's going to be able to control these dark entities with their mind alone. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely worth looking into further about what CERN is truly about, and what is it doing? Is it opening up this dimension into the underworld? Because supposedly we're not supposed to be able to go there physically, and that this Saturn, Hela, they actually dwell beneath the earth. The greater aspect of darkness is beneath our feet. And that in Yggdrasil, the Norse cosmology, it talks about hell. It says that there is a plane called hell, ruled by Hela, and she is the one who is the ruler of the underworld. And it would make sense because of the yin principle. Yin is a feminine, divine feminine aspect, the hidden aspects, also the shadow aspect of our world. So we are living in the part where the light and the darkness meet. But again, do you choose to touch the darkness, or do you choose to imbibe fully and wholeheartedly the light? This is our choice.
But what is the purpose then of implementing AI in such a massive way and on such a scale that it's physically, it's mentally, it's everything. It's our technology. AI is everywhere, and not even as much as it probably will be unless, we can stop it. And that seems a little bit far-fetched at the moment, right?
Well, in our current form, because we do not have our full engaged innate abilities to manipulate matter around us, artificial intelligence is used as a means of massive mind control. If they can't control us because they know that the energy is changing during this epoch, they know that we're about to come into our awakening. This is why they've tried to dampen everything. They've tried to poison the air, the water, the food, even the clothes we wear with synthetic materials, trying to dampen our growth and evolution of light frequency. And so if you can do that on a certain level, you can begin to change and alter people's minds. But since they can't do it, and we're entering the time of the Great Awakening, the only way they can do it now is through technological means. And the technology, not only are we wasting our time when we're going through social media apps and putting all of these different apps on our phone to give our time away to, that's all we have here is time. That's the true current see. So it's current, it's the present moment, and we see with our vision of our consciousness. And we're giving it willingly through the will. Openly, we choose what we wish to embrace and use our time with. And so the Dark Brotherhood knows this. They know that they can summon these beings up into our world. They've been using the contracts because Saturn is a lord of contracts. They've been using these contracts with these other aliens because they're on other continents and from other lands that we don't know about. They've made contracts with them to grab that technology
and to use it for dark purposes instead of giving it openly as free energy knowledge and to share it with the world. They have dark hearts to like suppress it from the rest of it and to use it for their means alone.
And do you also
And
think that Elon Musk is part of the top elite with all of his billions, I suppose he has?
well, I'll tell you this much. One thing to know is that you don't become just a billionaire overnight to create a company such as of Tesla cars, you know, to start off with, and then to create SpaceX and Neuralink and all of these other things that are basically tied to the Borg system that they are creating. And it's going to summon the demon of Ahriman, basically, because even Elon Musk has expressed in one of his interviews that the artificial intelligence is summoning a demon. And the D-Wave computer, the demon wave, I mean, this is all for our experience as a soul who came here to learn lessons in the school, the alchemy school of soul and earth experience. We came here to have this knowledge, this gnosis of the dark forces, so that we can carry that knowledge into the future to use it in a better way. Because
people should not be blinded by somebody like him. We spoke about Trump as well.
Right.
We speak about other Hegelian dialectic figures or things that are being implemented that will divide people and split them into seeing new hope.
Yes, well, there's always hope, right? But we're supposed to turn to each other and look inwardly as being the hope for the world. Trump is a trump card, whether it's on us or them or everyone, you know, he has invested in, he's highly invested in cryptocurrencies and all, and so are the entire Dark Brotherhood, because there's this dance of light and dark forces that churns new stories throughout time. And if you just step off the path, the beaten path of the mainstream way of thinking, that's when you begin your own personal journey into alchemy, questioning everything in existence, looking at nature with awe and reverence, and seeing and recognizing all of these processes that are found in nature are found inside yourself. As we go through all of these seasonal changes, from birth to death and then rebirth cycle, you can find that in every aspect, even in the daily processes. As we begin the day, it's the new spring, and then goes into summer and fall and winters and night. You know, everything is alchemy because we are all chemists. Kemet was the place to find spirit alchemy, and that's what Egypt was called before, you know, it fell to Romans, basically.
So while we are discovering more about ourselves in this awakened state and learning so much more, should we do that while we listen to rap music?
Yeah, so again, they're using hypnotic trance. It's all about impressions, you know, what are they feeding the subconscious mind? And I was listening to one of your videos where you had a guest who was talking about this, how they use the hypnotic suggestion as a means of mind control to manipulate those who are not fully aware and conscious of their own divine, you know, spirit and essence, that they can manipulate them and use them as tools for dark forces and dark energies to go out and create crimes, and it's a means of mass mind control. But we have to recognize this programming, the methods of the programming, in order to deprogram ourselves from that. You know, once you become aware of it, then you can no longer be programmed by it. So that's Hollywood, that's anything on TV and anything in the music industry today. Go out and make your own music, you know, get your own instruments and just practice and listen to the divine pure tones instead of even the digital tones that are not as great as the ones that were on the analog systems. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what is the takeaway from all of this? There's of course a lot to absorb, and people should watch this again. But what do people do now? What is the way ahead? What is your best advice for people listening to all of this?
The best advice is just go within, trust your inner knowing. We are supposed to be learning about our own divine consciousness, our consciousness created and connected to all things. And it's about knowing the darkness is there to teach you the best lessons and to give gratitude for those lessons. And I've even gotten to where I'm thanking Saturn for all of my experiences, because I realize now that this is a school, and Saturn is one of the greatest teachers of energy. You know, to know the darkness is to comprehend your light, and that you are not the only one here who's supposed to be learning from the same experiences, that there's always two people
So
or more.
darkness is the greatest teacher.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And people should not be in a state of fear then, even when we are facing some dark times right now and possibly ahead, even though we should do everything we can for the better and for the light.
Yes, fear keeps you from manifesting beautiful things that can happen in your life. If you learn to play with the world as a child does, to lose all of that judgment and fear of what other people may think of you. If you go skipping down the street or riding the shopping carts like I do, and when I go shopping, I ride them. If you lose that, you realize that nothing can stop your creation. Some people will laugh with you and revel in your creative, careless ways. And there's others who will judge you with their darkness because they have learned to imbibe the darkness. We come into this world as a light, a fully illuminated being when we're children. And then we learn to lose that light through all the conditioning processes that we've been taught, because it's not good to be a childlike, you know, while you're in public or, you know, speaking in a manner, you know, and there's a time to be professional and there's a time to play. There's a scientist, Marcel Vogel, who said that he was always childlike in discovering about crystal technology. He was childlike to play in the lab, but then when he got to a certain point, he would become the scientist he needed to be and use his analytical mind. That's what we need to learn again. Is just play with the universe.
It's a wonderful message, and it's great. And if people want to learn more about you, and you have a book, you said, or they want to go to your website, please tell people how they can do so.
Yeah, my website is wellenbe, wellenbe.com, and also Ellensart, ELLENSART.com. And I also have Era of My Ways YouTube channel, but I am currently working on a book called Welcome to the World, and it's spelled in a different way because I comprehend the whirling energies that are everywhere all around us. And it's basically going to be a compilation of many different subjects. It's going to be amazing.
That sounds absolutely fascinating. We'd love to have you on again for that, or anytime you want to be back here. It's been a great pleasure, and you're very knowledgeable and connecting a lot of dots. And it's been very fascinating. Ellen King, to have you on Age of Truth TV. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to speak with you, and it was such an honor.